Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are. Thank you for taking the time to watch this live video. I don't do a lot of live videos. I think I'm going to do more just because of everything going on. Just seems like more people are here, and it's... Whoop, I'm going to break something in my car. So we're going to start working on that a little bit more, I think, but it's not my cup of tea. I really don't like doing live videos, but I wanted to talk to something today. If you've noticed, the title is COVID Depression. I just realized I've got 30 things going on with leaving the house, and I forgot to put my safety belt on. There we go. No more beeping. All right, so COVID depression, and I've that's what I titled this, and that's kind of what I'm calling it now. It's something I'm starting to see a lot of. And I already did one video on this on YouTube, so if you already saw that, it's going to be kind of a relapse, but it's something that needs to be talked about, something that's important. Hello, Mr. Snell from New York. I'll wave at you there. It's amazing the people that are dealing with COVID and the depression that comes with it. Now, when this thing was coming out, they started talking about the depression and how people were being depressed because of the, you know, being alone and all of that came along with the isolation and everything. The depression that comes along with COVID is absolutely disgusting and demonic. If you do not understand that this sickness is spiritual as much as it is physical, you've really got to reevaluate. This thing is 100% spiritual and demonic, and it needs to be dealt with on that level. It needs to be dealt with prayer. It is not just something that can be dealt with hydroxychloroquine or whatever that is actually working. It actually is a truly demonic sickness. And I can tell you that because I've seen the evidences. Anything that takes away hope, which is God's biggest gift to us, is hope, right? Anything that takes away that, anything that takes away the feeling of love, and all of that is definitely demonic. And that's exactly what this sickness is doing to people. And you're not hearing this talked about in the news at all, I guarantee you. But that's how you know that this thing is actually supernatural more than it is natural. And maybe it's supernatural because it was cooked up in a lab, and it was cooked up with the intention of delivering this kind of depression, but that's exactly what it is. And I do believe that, you know, people in America, we don't understand, like, what am I thinking of? Like witchcraft and you know, the potions and things like that. But good night, if you get involved with some of these other cultures, you start to realize very quickly that these things do exist. And what we're seeing is COVID has a lot of this with it. So the people that I've known that have gone through COVID, and I've known quite a few now, and they've all told me the exact same thing. One, depression becomes just overwhelming, and to the point that they don't even know how to deal with it. The depression is just a disgusting side effect of COVID. Not only that is there depression, but there is also the hallucinations of the demonic realm that come with it. Hallucinations of voices telling people that they're worthless, that they can't deal with life. And the thing is, I don't think pastors are aware that this is actually going on. Most pastors haven't had COVID, and to be honest, most pastors have not been acting as pastors during this time. And I'm sorry if you are one that has. Congratulations, I'm glad. But a lot of pastors have not been acting as a pastor during this time, and so therefore we are out of touch and out of loop as to what the congregation is dealing with when they go through this demonic attack. And I'm going to call it that throughout the whole video because it's exactly what it is. It's demonic. And so when the pastors need to understand, if you have congregation members that are going through COVID, they're not just sick from a disease, they are under a demonic attack, and there is going to be hallucinations, depression, self-doubt, anger, bitterness, all these different things. This thing kicks it up inside of people, and unless they get the prayer and they pray through it, they can't. I've even heard people who have been clear of COVID now for weeks, and they still have these attacks of depression and these attacks of hallucinations and other things that are just coming alongside of it. And I have not heard not one person on the news or in the media has talked about this and how realistic it actually is. If you are going through this, the only thing that you can do to battle this ugly, ugly thing is to pray through it. It's all you can do is call out to Jesus and say, man, you got to get me through this, God. I need you to give me hope, to give me all these things that come along with Jesus that this thing attacks, right? Hope, love, peace, serenity, a lack of fear. COVID is attacking all of those things. It's giving people fear. It's giving people depression. It's giving people hallucinations. It takes away their peace. It is just a demonstrative thing. It's just completely ugly. And I now more than ever believe wholeheartedly that this thing is supernatural. I do believe it was demonically formed to begin with. And I know a lot of American Christians will not understand this, but I know my South African people will, my Indian people will, my people from Asia, anybody basically from outside of a European nation will understand completely that the supernatural realm is still alive and well. And though we only want to pretend that angels exist and we cast out the devil on all other levels, there are still demonic things that are oppressing us, and these things are summed up through fear. And as especially like America is falling away from God, it's giving more room for these things to grow and take over. So as our churches become crippled, literally crippled. I mean, churches are closing right and left in America. People aren't attending church, and there's a lot of reasons why, and that's a whole other video in its own right. But I can tell you that as long as the church is not praying, and most churches do not pray well. That's just the thing. Most churches do not have strong prayer as a part of their ministry. They might have Sunday service, they might even have a midweek service, but prayer service and pushing prayer, that's not there. Discipleship is not there. So the church is crumbling from the inside, and these spiritual attacks come. You know, there's always been this thing about America. You can't attack America from the outside. America's a lot like the church, which is interesting because there's a lot of correlations between America and the church. Whenever America comes under persecution, America grows stronger. Whenever the church comes under persecution, it becomes stronger. But if you want to destroy America, you destroy it from the inside, which is what you're seeing right now. This is all a giant supernatural spiritual attack on America. So right now you have races fighting each other. You have special interest groups fighting each other. You have riots and protests and everybody telling us to hate the other person, but don't hate the other person. But you don't hear love. You will never hear love. We should all be friendly and we should all get along, but you will never hear the news say we should love one another. And that's actually the key to this whole thing is love. But see, the supernatural realm says let's destroy, let's tear apart from the inside, and if you do that, then the outside will fall apart as well. And so that's what you're seeing in the church across America. The church has become weak from the inside, and because of that, then these spiritual attacks can come in and destroy us. And so now the church is falling apart. It's crumbling in America. It literally is just falling to pieces. And many pastors gave into this, and I've been hard on this since this whole COVID thing kicked. And I know some of you are angry at me for it, and I don't care. I know it's the word that God gave me regarding COVID, is that COVID was a spiritual attack, but it also served a purpose for God, and that was to start clearing out that wheat from the chaff, as we see in the Bible. That there has to be a cleaning house that takes place in the end times, that the weak and the non-true believers get cleared out. Remember, the Bible says that Jesus said that because you were neither hot nor cold, I spewed you, because you were lukewarm. And Jesus will not stand for a lukewarm church, and that's what's going on. So this whole COVID-19 thing, what it did is it helped start clearing this out. And there's a lot of churches that after this 1 year, you know, scripturally speaking, a lot of these things tend to last 3 years, 4 years, somewhere in that time. You know, and you start looking at spiritual numbers. What's the completion? And so you look at that. What's the the number of cleansing and all that kind of stuff. So maybe it's 7 days, maybe it's 3 days. But you have to kind of look at those spiritual numbers, and I guarantee you they'll probably play in. So right now, churches were originally thinking, well, it'll be 3 months. And now we're way past 3 months. We're into 6 months. My guess is some of these rules are going to stay in play if I'm going off of what I'm hearing right now, I would say 3 years that churches are going to be held down. And if you think your church can last 3 years without meeting, you've got another thing coming. And I am telling you that God gave America the tools to stay alive and well during this time, and the supernatural is fighting against it. So unless something miraculous happens, which could happen, we're coming up to the election, and there's been a lot of talk that once the election takes place, then COVID will disappear. And if that's the case, then a lot of these regulations will disappear at that point too. But I would not be surprised if all the other regulations fall apart, but many of the things aimed at the church will stay in, especially in liberal democratic states, okay? And this is not a party line thing. It's just, honestly, if you want to see the Democrat agenda, it's been to destroy the church for many years, okay? And so it's not a party line thing, because I don't think all Democrats feel this way, and I think there's many Democrats that are Christian, but I do believe that this thing comes down party lines as far as the attacks on the church. And so if you want to see what's going on, you got to open up your spiritual eyes. You got to see through your spirit man and understand what is really going on. You need to be praying and asking God to show you the real picture, because there's so much going on, and so many pastors are going to lose their ministries during this time because they were not faithful. They did not stand true with God. And I'm telling you, and I'm telling you, and I'm telling you, this has been clear to me since day one. Many churches will close. Okay, and it's going to be big churches. Like, a lot of you are like, oh, these massive churches. No, they are going to close. They cannot afford their billion-dollar buildings when nobody's coming into church. And right now they say, well, people are still giving. Yes, they're giving now. Give it 3 years and see if people are still giving. Many of these massive pastors are going to be out of a ministry because they were not serving God, they were not honoring God, and they were not crying out in a heart of worship to God. And they didn't call out to God and say, help us. And they haven't been there for their congregation during this disgusting time of the supernatural attack. So please understand, if you are had COVID, you're dealing with COVID now, you may still yet go through it. You know family members or friends that have. Understand there's a supernatural attack. They need prayer. They need people to come along them and give them encouragement and to let them know that Jesus is the answer, and Jesus will help them through this thing, and they have to rely on him. That's my message for right now. I pray that it blesses you. Share it, because other people need to hear this. As I said, nobody is talking about the supernatural attacks of COVID-19. So please share this and let people know. Thank you. Be blessed, and we will see you again.